Hey, and welcome to Geometry for the 2015 to 2016 school year. This video is just a short introduction to what the course is like and to some brief history about geometry. So like I said, welcome. My name is Mr. Beagle. Mr. Koss is also one of your teachers. He and I will be your teachers for this course, so if you need anything, come to either one of us. During this lesson, I'm just going to introduce you to us, some personal things about us, what we like, interests, things like that. Go over some expectations and guidelines for this year, some things have changed from last year if you're here with us, and also if you're new, then I can introduce you to some things that I'll be expecting. And then I'm just going to begin by showing you a short introduction of geometry from Khan Academy. Alright, so I'm Mr. Beagle. I grew up in Chester County, which is about an hour west of Philadelphia, and I graduated from a high school called Coatesville High School in 2008. I love sports. I played a lot of sports in Coatesville. I played soccer and baseball. I played football. I swam, played tennis, and ran track. I still love to stay active in my spare time. I love working out, playing basketball, chronom, playing golf, really anything athletic and active I love to do. I love being outside. That goes along with me being active. I love hiking, camping, hunting, fishing, anything that has to do with the outdoors. Having grown up so close to Philadelphia, I am a huge Philly sports fan. Huge Eagles fan, Phillies fan, Flyers. Pretty big Sixers fan, but they haven't been too good lately, and I love watching the Union play soccer as well. I went to Temple University and Westchester University. Westchester is about 15 minutes where I grew up from. I'm married to a beautiful wife, that's her down there, and like I said, I live in Coatesville where I grew up. And now we're going to talk about Mr. Koss. He's been teaching since 2007. And he's been working here at AHCCS since 2013, so a lot longer than I have been. He is from New York, but he currently lives near the Exton office. Mr. Koss is married, that's him with his wife on the right there, and they have a son named Jordan, and that's him on the left driving. And being from New York, Mr. Koss is a huge Mets and New York Jets fan, and I'm just thankful he's not a Giants fan. Some other interests. He loves sports, fantasy sports, working out, video games, board games, and trivia. His favorite movies, American Beauty, Dumb and Dumber, Dark Knight, Anchorman, and he says much, much more. His favorite music is rock, and his favorite television shows are The Simpsons, Real Time, Last Week with John Oliver, South Park, and The Wire. Okay, so just a couple bullet points of new things to expect this year. There will be 1,000 points total in our geometry class that you can earn throughout each quarter. So 1,000 points each quarter, that means over the whole year you can earn up to 4,000 points. At the beginning of each quarter, you will be required to take a pretest. Don't worry, you will not be graded on that pretest. It's just to see how much you know, so take that seriously. We're going to evaluate how you do and see what parts you really need help with and what parts that you kind of already know. So that way this year we're not doing too much time on things that you might already know. So take that seriously. You will not, that won't affect your grade whether you do good or bad. So take it seriously. If you don't know stuff, that's okay. Just try your hardest. You will get a grade for doing it, for participation. And then at the end of the quarter, you're required to take a post-test. Now, on this post-test, it's going to be stuff that we cover in the quarter, so you are expected to know it, so you will be graded on how you do, not just participation. And then each week, you are expected to complete all assignments by Thursday night. That's a new thing. That's big. All assignments are expected to be completed by Thursday night at midnight. And then on Friday, you'll have a chance to look at your grades, reevaluate assignments, and then resubmit them as well. The final absolute deadline for resubmissions is Sunday at midnight. So Sunday of the week, at the end of the week, at midnight is your final chance to turn stuff in. If you don't, you will not be given an extension. So each week you need to make sure all your work for each week is done by midnight on Sunday. You are also expected to watch all videos, take diligent notes, attend live class, and contact us at least once a week. At least. If you do so, you will earn an extra 10 points for participation. So every week you can easily earn 10 points just by coming to live class and doing your work. Pretty much what you're expected to do anyway. If you're on task and you're doing what you're supposed to, you get 10 points. Alright, so math cafes, they will be open. Come anytime from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. They will be open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So that's 12 hours a day for 4 days in a row. That's 48 hours from Monday to Thursday when you can come in and get live one-on-one help with anything that you need. You are responsible for contacting us if you need help. So if you don't know, if we don't know that you need help, then we can't help you. So you need to be able to come to us, and you can come to us anytime you want. I'll give you our contact information in a minute. But just come to us and say, hey, I need help. And we will gladly set up a time to meet with you and to work through problems with you. But you need to come to us and let us know that so that we can help you. So you are responsible for contacting us or just going to the Math Cafe if you need help. We won't be in there all the time. However, there will always be at least 2 math teachers in there to help you with whatever you need help with. And like I said, if you want to contact us directly and we're not in the Math Cafe, you can just email us or call us. Here's our contact information. Make sure you pause this screen and copy this down so that you have it when you need it. Now we're going to watch a very short, simple video about the history of Euclidean geometry. We're going to watch a video from Khan Academy. Samuel Khan does a good job of it, just explaining how geometry got its start and who was responsible for it. So go ahead, watch this, practice by taking some notes, and just really listening to what Samuel Khan has to say.
The laws of nature are but the mathematical thoughts of God. And this is a quote by Euclid of Alexandria, who was a Greek mathematician and philosopher who lived about 300 years before Christ. And the reason why I include this quote is because Euclid is considered to be the father of geometry. And it is a neat quote. Regardless of your views of God, whether or not God exists or the nature of God, it says something very fundamental about nature. The laws of nature are but the mathematical thoughts of God. That math underpins all of the laws of nature. And the word geometry itself has Greek roots. Geo comes from Greek for earth. Metry comes from Greek for measurement. You're probably used to something like the metric system. And Euclid is considered to be the father of geometry, not because he was the first person who studied geometry. You could imagine the very first humans might have studied geometry. They might have looked at 2 twigs on the ground that looked something like that, and they might have looked at another pair of twigs that looked like that and said, this is a bigger opening. What is the relationship here? Or they might have looked at a tree. They might have looked at a tree that had a branch that came off it like that. And they said, there's something similar about this opening here and this opening here. Or they might have asked themselves, what is the ratio? Or what is the relationship between the distance around a circle and the distance across it? And is that the same for all circles? And is there a way for us to feel really good that that is definitely true? And then once you got to the early Greeks, they started to get even more thoughtful, essentially, about geometric things. When you talk about, Greek mathematicians like Pythagoras, who came before Euclid? But the reason why Euclid is considered to be the father of geometry, and why we often talk about Euclidean geometry, is around 300 BC. And this right over here is a picture of Euclid painted by Raphael. And no one really knows what Euclid looked like even when he was born or when he died. So this is just Raphael's impression of what Euclid might have looked like while he was teaching in Alexandria. But what made Euclid the father of geometry is really his writing of Euclid's Elements. And what the Elements were 13 volumes of essentially a 13-volume textbook. And arguably the most famous textbook of all time. And what he did in those 13 volumes is he essentially did a rigorous thoughtful, logical march through geometry and number theory, and then also solid geometry, so geometry in 3 dimensions. And this right over here is the frontispiece for the English version of, or the first translation of the English version of Euclid's Elements, and this was done in 1570, but it was obviously first written in Greek, and then during much of the Middle Ages, that knowledge was shepherded by the Arabs, and it was translated into Arabic, and then eventually in the late Middle Ages, translated into Latin, and then obviously eventually English. And when I say that he did a rigorous march, what Euclid did is he didn't just say, oh, I think if you take the square of one side of a right triangle, the length of one side of a right triangle and the length of the other side of the right triangle is going to be the same as the square of the hypotenuse, all of these other things, and we'll go into depth about what all of these things mean. He says, I don't want to just feel good that it's probably true. I want to prove to myself that it is true. And so what he did in Elements, especially the 6 books that are concerned with planar geometry, in fact, he did all of them, but from a geometrical point of view, he started with basic assumptions. So he started with basic assumptions, and those basic assumptions in geometric speak are called axioms or postulates. And from them, he deduced other statements or propositions, or these are sometimes called theorems. And then he says, now I know if this is true and this is true, this must be true. And he could also prove that other things cannot be true. So then he could prove that this is not going to be the true. He didn't just say, well, every circle I've said has this property. He says, I've now proven that this is true. And then from there, we can go and deduce other propositions or theorems. And we could use some of our original axioms to do that. And what's special about that is no one had really done that before. Rigorously proven beyond a shadow of a doubt across a whole broad sweep of knowledge. So not just one proof here or there. He did it for an entire set of knowledge that we're talking about, a rigorous march through a subject so that he could build this scaffold of axioms and postulates and theorems and propositions. And theorems and propositions are essentially the same thing. And essentially for about 2,000 years after Euclid, so this is unbelievable shelf life for a textbook, people didn't view you as educated if you did not read and understand Euclid's Elements. And Euclid's Elements, the book itself, was the second most printed book in the Western world after the Bible. This is a math textbook. It was second only to the Bible. When the first printing presses came out, they said, okay, let's print the Bible. What do we print next? Let's print Euclid's Elements. And to show that this is relevant into the fairly recent past, although some would, whether or not you argue that about 150, 160 years ago is the recent past, this right here is a direct quote from Abraham Lincoln, obviously one of the great American presidents. I like this picture of Abraham Lincoln. This is actually a photograph of Lincoln in his late 30s. But he was a huge fan of Euclid's Elements. He would actually use it to fine-tune his mind. While he was riding his horse, he would read Euclid's Element. While he was in the White House, he would read Euclid's Element. But this is a direct quote from Lincoln. In the course of my law reading, I constantly came upon the word demonstrate. I thought at first that I understood its meaning, but soon became satisfied that I did not. I said to myself, what do I do when I demonstrate more than when I reason or prove? How does demonstration differ from any other proof? So in Lincoln's saying there's this word demonstration that kind of means something more, proving beyond doubt, something more rigorous, more than just simple, kind of feeling good about something or reasoning through it. I consulted Webster's dictionary. So Webster's dictionary was around when Lincoln was around. They told of certain proof beyond the possibility of doubt. But I could form no idea of what sort of proof that was. I thought a great many things were proved beyond the possibility of doubt, without recourse to any such extraordinary process of reasoning as I understood demonstration to be. I consulted all the dictionaries and books of reference I could find, but with no better results. You might as well have defined blue to a blind man. At last I said, Lincoln, he's talking to himself, at last I said, Lincoln, you never can make a lawyer if you do not understand what demonstrate means. And I left my situation in Springfield, went home to my father's house, and stayed there till I could give any proposition in the 6 books of Euclid at sight, so the 6 books concerned with planar geometry. I then found out what demonstrate means and went back to my law study. So one of the greatest American presidents of all time felt that in order to be a great lawyer, he had to understand, be able to prove any proposition in the 6 books of Euclid's Elements at sight. And also, once he was in the White House, he continued to do this to make him, in his mind, to fine-tune his mind to become a great president. And so what we're going to be doing in the geometry playlist is essentially that. What we're going to study is we're going to think about how do we really tightly, rigorously prove things. We're essentially going to be, in a slightly more modern form, be studying what Euclid studied 2,300 years ago, to really tighten our reasoning of different statements, and being able to make sure that when we say something, we can really prove what we're saying. And this is really some of the most fundamental real mathematics that you will do. Arithmetic was really just computation. Now in geometry, and what we're going to be doing is really Euclidean geometry, this is really what math is about. Making some assumptions and then deducing other things from those assumptions.